They put the drone in the air around the block from the house that they're going to go into. And they can see the house. They can see the backyard, the front yard. They can see if there are kids playing. They can see if there's a dog there. They can look at the doors. They can look at the locks. And they can do all of this without alerting the fugitive that they're there.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 118. Have you ever wondered what goes into training first responders on using drones? Well, fortunately, today's guest has been designing such programs for a long time now, and he has some great insights to share. Alan Beach is president of Argus Rising, a Dallas area company committed to providing first responder drone training. He is a military veteran, having served in the U.S. Coast Guard, flying hundreds of search and rescue missions out of Clearwater, Florida. Alan earned his MBA after leaving the military and is the co-author of Be a Wolf, the Entrepreneur's Guide to Becoming a Leader of the Pack. In 1996, Alan started Argus Connection and grew it to a multi-million-dollar technology services company, eventually selling the company in 2009. In 2015, Alan launched Argus Rising and has been developing course material and teaching UAV classes since. Alan is here to talk about training programs for first responders, the role of UAVs in public safety organizations, and the challenges and rewards of building a successful drone-based business. Interdrone 2017 will be held in Las Vegas from September 6th through the 8th. This is the largest fully dedicated commercial drone event of the year, so make plans to attend now. Alan will be speaking at this event, and he'll tell us about his session later in this interview. Receive $100 off the cost when you use the discount code RADIO. Go to interdrone.com for details and to register for this exciting event. If you like the Drone Radio Show and want to do a good thing, consider donating to my funding campaign on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production and expand its offerings. You can join this effort and get some really cool stuff by going to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. Now let's learn more about drone training programs for first responders with Alan Beach. Let's pick up the interview where I ask Alan to introduce himself.
I'm Alan Beach. I'm the president and CEO of Argus Rising. And Argus Rising provides drone training for first responders, law enforcement, and fire and rescue.
Alan, how long has the company been around?
We've been around 3 years now.
Can you tell us the story of how it got started?
We originally started Argus to train people in the commercial use of drones. And we were fairly successful at that when we were approached by Chad Woodside. He's a detective at the Hearst Police Department. And Chad asked us to develop a class specifically for law enforcement, fire and rescue. And we actually worked with Chad in developing what we call a 5-day boot camp, which is sort of the kickoff class for any first responders that want to utilize drones in their profession.
What sort of things go into putting the class together for first responders? How did you come up with the curriculum?
A big part of it is simply getting people certified so that they can pass the FAA flight test. The majority of these people have no flight experience whatsoever. They're not familiar with flight terms. And so at least a large part of the class is getting them to where they understand drone technology, can actually pass the FAA test. The rest of it is actually flight skills in the field. We actually fly missions in the field as if there was perhaps a hostage in a house or an actual fire or a search and rescue. So we take them out in the field, get them familiar with the drones, and then begin to fly missions.
I've looked through the 5-day course, and I see some things like locating an active shooter, active crime surveillance, a fugitive on the run, and so on. Are these the kind of missions that you take people through in your training?
They're exactly the missions that we bring people through. And then we have advanced classes after boot camp, so that if you want to get really good at a specific task or a specific mission, you can come back for advanced classes.
How do you approach the training? Say, for example, an active shooter situation. I would imagine that police departments already have some sort of procedures that they follow. So how do you intertwine a drone into that process?
And you're right. When you look at a police department, and let's say you have an active shooter, they absolutely have processes that they go through and utilize today. And what the drone provides is an additional set of eyes and additional information that they don't have today. And it's that information that allows them to make decisions that can be the difference between surviving and not surviving an active shooter situation. And what we'll do in an active shooter situation is one of the things we teach is rapid deployment, because once the drone officer arrives at the site, you have to be able to rapidly get into the air. You have to be able to rapidly know what it is you're looking for. And we do an active shooter from both, say, a park-like setting outside, and somebody's heard a couple of gunshots and you don't know where the shooter is, someplace in the park. And then we also do inside of a building. We've got an active shooter inside of a building, and literally teach the officers how to fly inside of a window, down the hallway, with the sole purpose of gaining information that they don't currently have, allowing them to make better decisions.
Based on your experience, what do law enforcement officials want to learn, or what do they want to get out of the training?
There's several things. Well, one of the big things that they come in is they want to get down to very specific use cases. And that is, if you're a fireman, you're a police officer, getting them down to what am I really going to do with this drone? You know, I understand you're going to teach me how to fly it. I understand you're going to teach me how to pass the test so that I can become a certified drone pilot. But after I get there, then what are the use cases? And so we spend a lot of time with use cases. And really, in starting a drone program for any first responder group, we really encourage them to not try to do too many things at once, but pick some very specific use cases and get really good at those use cases so that you get good feedback on the drone, and then expand those use cases as you get better and better with the drone.
Now that you've been doing this for a few years, what's your take on the impact that drones have in law enforcement?
You know, I think it's been really good. We get a lot of feedback from the firemen and the officers that we train. They send us missions that they've flown. We have one group that will take the drone out on every single SWAT mission. And we've just gotten excellent feedback from them. And that's, let's say a SWAT has a fugitive inside of a house that they need to go in. They said they have a set of eyes now that they've never had before. They put the drone in the air around the block from the house that they're going to go into. And they can see the house. They can see the backyard, the front yard. They can see if there are kids playing. They can see if there's a dog there. They can look at the doors. They can look at the locks. And they can do all of this without alerting the fugitive that they're there. In other words, if they brought in a helicopter is very noisy and it alerts the fugitive that something's going on. And a drone doesn't do that. And that's the type of feedback that we've gotten from law enforcement on the ability to use drones.
So you've had a few departments actually deploy this training in a real life situation.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we get really good feedback from them when they do. They tell us the drones that they've settled on using. Yeah, we've gotten some excellent feedback from both police and fire on the use of drones in actual missions.
Has the feedback from your attendees provided you with any ideas or topics that you've put back into your training?
We have, and it's a continuing process to make the classes better and better and more focused for both police and firemen. And they've given us some excellent feedback, especially from, you go all the way back to the very first class that we ran, the very first 5-day boot camp, which was for the Hearst Police Department. And since then, the class is significantly better than it was back 2 years ago.
How does training for fire departments differ from law enforcement?
It is different. Their missions are different. And we have done several things. One, we've trained both police and fire together. And that is, we'll go to a city and the city will send both police officers and firemen, and we'll train them together. But then when we fly missions, we'll split them up. And we'll have the police officers fly missions that are more apt to what a police officer would fly. And then we have the firemen fly missions that are more what a fireman would fly. And then we've done them separately. We've done a police department separately. We've done a fire department separately. It seems to work well no matter which way we go, because the main separation is in flying missions. And when we actually get out into the field, we separate them for the flying of the missions.
What do you think public safety organizations need to consider before they embark on a drone program?
There's really a lot. And that's a very good question, because when you get within the city, it's not like if I was to come teach you how to use a drone commercially and I'll teach you the rules and you can go do it. Once you get into a city, the city council needs to approve it. We actually help them put together operational manuals because they need to have an operational manual. We help them put together presentations to the city council to explain to the city council what drones are and how they're going to be used. We help them manage all the aspects of a public use of a drone. You know, when you say the word drone, a lot of citizens will get nervous about, well, why do you have a drone in the air? And so we help them explain that to the city council so the city council can explain it to the citizens. And it's really much different than just teaching someone how to commercially use a drone. They have a lot more barriers that they have to get over, and we prepare them for those barriers.
Do you provide any continuing education or support after organizations finish the training?
We do. There's the Top Gun 5-day class, which really gets them capable of flying some basic missions. But then when they want to get really good, they schedule an advanced class and come back for advanced classes. Advanced classes are generally 2 to 3 days long, depending on what it is. And they'll focus on just search and rescue. And that's all you'll do for 2 days is search and rescue. Or they'll focus on crime scene photography or an accident scene photography or an active shooter. So they'll come back and fly one mission, whatever that advanced class is on, and they get really, really good at flying it.
Now, I understand that these services can be provided as an outsourced service. Can you expand on that?
When you look at cities and counties, they really have, as it's evolving very quickly, they really have two options. One option is just real straightforward. That's I'm going to train my police department. I'm going to train my fire department how to use a drone. I'm going to put in place operational manuals, tell them what they can and cannot do with the drone. In other words, there's restrictions that are different for each city. Or I can hire a professional drone group that flies drones and make them available to the police and the fire department and simply outsource it to a group. So that the police can call the drone group and they'll come out and fly the drone, whatever mission they want them to fly. Or the fire department can call them and they'll come out and fly whatever mission they want them to fly. Of course, what you lose when you outsource is you don't have that officer in the field actually flying a drone that can literally be at the scene 5 or 10 minutes after you've heard about an active shooter. It slows down the process. But for some cities, for some counties, especially smaller cities and maybe very large counties, the outsource model can work very well.
Do you help connect agencies to professional drone service companies that can provide that service?
We actually provide those services. You could actually outsource your drone needs to us.
Okay, great. Let's talk about the company for a moment. It's been 3 years since you launched the company. In that time, what have been some of the challenges that you've had to overcome to get where you're at today?
This is the second company that my wife and I have built. And there's always barriers, there's always challenges. Certainly in drones, one of the big challenges was the constantly changing rules from the Federal Aviation Administration. And that is the FAA has just been trying to get their arms around how to manage drones, and they put out a lot of rules that are just constantly changing. So that was very challenging, especially 3 years ago. That settled down. And after that, it's finding really qualified people to do training because most people really aren't qualified to do training. And we've ended up with some really high-end people. Actually, a lot of certified pilots are on our staff. Certified trainers are on our staff. So we've been real fortunate in putting together the staff and the instructors. And with that, our customers realize that we provide really high-quality professional training for first responders, and that's driven a lot of business for us.
It seems like as soon as Part 107 went into effect, there was an explosion of training services all across the country. Have you seen a lot of competition in the public safety area, or is it still a fairly specialized field?
You know, we've seen some competition in the area, but we are really focused on law enforcement and fire and rescue, and we really haven't seen competition from that specific area. In other words, there's a lot of training companies, and they'll go, absolutely, we'll do law enforcement, absolutely, we'll do fire and rescue. But what they haven't done is they haven't developed courses, especially something like the 5-day boot camp, that are very specific to first responders, utilizing first responders' feedback on what they need and the kind of missions they want to fly. And that's where we've separated ourselves from our other competitors. On the other hand, we don't do commercial training. We picked a niche, and that niche is first responders, and we've gotten very good at it.
So you're going to be at Interdrone in September. What sessions will you be leading?
I'm on a panel for law enforcement the very first day, but then I'm doing a class that's called Ortho Mosaics for law enforcement. And It's an interesting class. What you utilize Ortho Mosaics for is either shooting a crime scene or shooting an accident scene. And an Ortho Mosaic is basically like a map where you can actually measure distances. It's something that law enforcement has never had in their toolbox when it comes to a crime scene or an accident scene. And that is, you can fly an accident scene in 15 minutes and literally capture the entire accident scene with the ability to measure tire marks and skid marks. And I mean, it's just an amazing technology that law enforcement is putting to use. And so it's a niche, it's a growing area. One of our advanced classes is 3 days on absolutely nothing but Ortho Mosaics for law enforcement and shooting crime scenes. They're popular classes. Law enforcement people like coming to the class and really getting in depth of how to shoot Ortho Mosaics. And so that's what my discussion is going to be on.
What is the value to law enforcement agencies? Will it save them money, time, or produce better data? What are the advantages over what they're doing today?
It goes back to what drones provide in general, and that is access to information that law enforcement or fire and rescue have not had in the past. When you look specifically at an Ortho Mosaic picture, basically it's a single picture of, let's say, a crime scene. But within that single picture, you can zoom in to a bullet case and measure the distance between bullet casings and perhaps something else going on in the scene. And then you can zoom back out to the entire scene. Interestingly enough, not only do police like this as part of their investigative portfolio, but district attorneys really like it, because when it goes to trial, in the past, the district attorney would have a file full of maybe 50, maybe 100, maybe 200 photographs, right? Very detailed photographs. And it never really allowed the jury to see the bigger picture, and that is the entire crime scene. And now a district attorney can go into a trial and start with the crime scene and show them the entire crime scene, and then very quickly zoom into detail, zoom back out, and it just paints a completely different picture than what they've had access to in the past. It doesn't actually replace anything. It doesn't replace standard crime scene photography. You still do all your standard crime scene photography. It adds a level of detail and technology that they've never had in the past.
If an officer at a crime scene deploys the drone, how much of the mission is automated or pre-programmed versus the officer having to figure out where to fly it?
It depends on the mission. Certainly an Ortho Mosaic is all autopilot. We teach you how to set up your autopilot. You can set up autopilot on the scene. You can set it up literally within minutes, and the drone flies the mission. And that's how you do Ortho Mosaics. If you've got an active shooter, odds are you're going to actually be piloting the craft. You're in an active shooter engagement. Go over to fire and rescue, and you show up on a scene and the house is on fire. A big part of that is going to be autopilot, and that is you just put it above the house and you set your circumference, and it will literally just circle the house and allow you to see hot spots in the roof, allow you to see things going on that you haven't been able to see in the past so that you can protect the firemen. So it's really a combination. Sometimes you just need really good flight skills, and other times you need to understand how to set up autopilot and get it into the air.
Do you advise local organizations on how to integrate drones into their incident command structures?
We do. Once a city does this, right? Once a police department does this, fire department does this, you have to have an operational manual. The operational manual is really how you engage the drone and the use of the drone. And it's different for every city, but we offer basically sort of a skeleton operational manual that can be edited to whatever the particular city wants as their guidelines. And it's that operational manual that helps integrate the drone into the use for both the police department and the fire department.
Getting back to your inner drone session on the Ortho Mosaic class, is that an actual class or is it just a presentation on the techniques?
It's a presentation on the technique. I wouldn't be able to cover, the advanced Ortho Mosaic class is literally 3 days long. So I wouldn't be able to teach how to use it, but we teach what it is you gain from it and how quickly and easily it really is to set it up once you understand it.
So for a department that's interested in understanding if this is something they want to bring into their operation, this is the session they should attend.
Absolutely.
And for the other session, you're on a panel. What's the topic?
Yes, it's just use of drones for law enforcement.
What roles do you think drones are going to play in the future as they become more accepted?
I think it's going to be significant. And there's almost not a month that goes by that someone doesn't come up with another use for a drone, or the drones come up with some new technology for use by first responders. And I'll just give you one quick example of an emerging technology. And it's the ability of a drone to sense chemicals or explosives. And that's just going to be huge within the law enforcement community, to be able to fly a drone over and sense something like a meth lab that's, out in the country or something, or an explosives on a highway or someplace that it shouldn't be. And you literally cannot get through a month that you don't see some new technology or some new use of the drones by police departments and fire departments.
Are sensors in a drone capable of detecting something like a meth lab today?
If you read the internet, they'll tell you yes, it is. And I believe it is in a test environment. I don't believe they're at the point for field deployment yet. But if you can make it work in a test environment, field deployment is not far off. And so I think they'll be there. Obviously, being able to detect explosives, not only big for fire departments, police departments, but also military use as well. So I think you'll see that develop fairly quickly.
Are more and more local governments making inquiries to find out how this technology can benefit them?
Yes. And when you really look at cities and counties, you really see a division. Some embrace the technology and understand that you have to set up rules and guidelines around it in order to use it properly. And others are just sort of switching off the switch, so to speak, right at the moment. And that is, they're putting a rule down that says there will be no drones. They're not really saying there will be no drones indefinitely. What they're doing is they're buying themselves time to really look at the technology, to allow the technology to develop, and watch other cities and counties actually deploy them, so that when they do get around to deploying it, they feel like they can do it the way that it needs to be done. In other words, they don't want to be on the leading edge of the deployment. They want to be back a few stages and watch other people do deployments. So even cities or counties that have said, no, we're not going to deploy drones, from what I've seen, it's not a hard no. It's a no, let's watch the industry and see how it develops.
Many times there might be a department that's really interested in establishing a new program. But like you indicated, there are city councils or mayors that make the final decision. In my experiences, these individuals have a lot of questions. Are there resources where decision makers can learn about the benefits and the implications of a drone program?
There are. In fact, that's come up a number of times. And we've partnered with the ROCIC, that's a regional organized crime group out of Nashville, Tennessee. They're federally funded to provide training to law enforcement and fire rescue, basically first responders. And we partnered with them in running classes. And one of the classes that we've developed, they brought up, and we thought it was a good idea and put it together. It's a 2-day introduction class. And in that 2-day class, we don't teach you flight skills. We don't teach you how to pass the FA test. We teach you the ins and outs of drones as they apply to cities and counties. You'll come away with a presentation that you can present to the city council. We'll talk to them about positive things, the negative things, the perception. So it's really sort of, if you're on the fence, you're not sure where it's going, you can send people to this 2-day class. They don't have to be technical people. They don't have to be law enforcement. A city council member could show up. And in that 2-day class, we walk you through drones. We talk a lot about what other cities and counties have done. There have been cities that have started drone programs, shut down drone programs, restarted drone programs. And in a city and county, they obviously don't want to get caught in that sort of mix, that they want, if they're going to do it, they want to do it right. In this class, will help them get through that initial decision process.
What has this experience been like for you personally to create this company and achieve the success that you've had?
We've really enjoyed it. My wife and I have run another company. We ran another company for 10 years and we sold it a while back, and looking for something else to do, and sort of jumped into the drone technology business. And we've enjoyed it. It's had its frustrations. Starting any business has its frustrations. And part of it is the technology is so new and changing so fast that it's difficult to keep up with. Fortunately, we have very good people to do that for us.
And for my final question, Alan, what is the message that you'd like to leave in regard to how drones can support law enforcement and fire departments?
I think you have to walk away with the understanding that this technology is still very new. Use cases are still developing. Drone technology is still developing. However, it's not a bad time to start. And if you're thinking you're going to wait for it to settle down, in other words, I'm going to wait till it develops and settle down, this technology is not going to settle down. And it's actually an excellent time to start a drone program. Technology is where it needs to be. It's priced where it needs to be priced at. In my opinion, there could not be a better time to start a drone program and get it up and running, at least get it up and running, and then grow it as it needs to be grown in the future.
That's it for episode 118 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Alan Beach of Argus Rising. I want to thank Alan for taking the time to speak with me and sharing his expertise. If you want to learn more about first responder training programs or want to connect with Alan, check out the website at argusrising.com. And remember, you can meet Alan in person at Interdrone 2017 on September 6th through the 8th. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.